Tape Deck Media.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Art of Bombing presents Between Bombs Callbacks, where Larry and myself call back the most recent episode. And in this episode, we are calling back episode 310 with Clay Foley, aka Cat Daddy.
Cat Daddy Clay Foley.
Yeah, Clay. I'm sure Clay's gonna listen to this, and when you do, Clay, that should be the name of your first album, is Cat Daddy.
And see, Dan and I, we disagree on this, and I've got a suggestion, but Dan won't let me say it because of advertising and marketing.
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
want to make money on this podcast.
Rules and stuff.
Ugh. That's the thing. I could say it on late night television because I'm not referring. I'm not
Yeah,
referring
you
to
can.
anything. I love Dan. For all those that are watching,
Yeah, when this comes out.
or when you're listening, or that pauses, Dan just kept rolling away and coming back. And what I love is right at the beginning when Dan's like, "Everybody, hey!" I'm sitting here wiping my nose for no reason. I'm like, "No, oh, there it is. Oh, there, hi, everybody."
This is gonna look very glamorous when we release the video for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we're killing it today.
We are killing it. We're on a roll, baby. We are. Yeah. That was a great episode though. That was a lot of fun. The show that we did together was pretty fun. It was a packed show. Yeah, it was a good time. It was a big room too. Holy crap.
Clay is really, really good at what he does. And Clay, if anybody doesn't know, Clay Foley is a very close friend of mine. He and I came up together in the same area.
Mhm.
And he and I have, anytime we can, we put each other on shows because we know we work well together. We like hanging out, and we know it's just going to be a better show when we work together. Um, but yeah, Clay had found a way to just that magical thing we constantly talk about is finding your niche. Find that niche. And he did, and then figured out how to market it.
Yep, absolutely.
From everything from his graphics that he uses to using um, his background as, an animal cruelty investigator, and using that to his to his benefit, but to the benefit of his organization that he's created.
Yep.
Uh,
And adding on to that, yeah, it's not really his benefit because he doesn't pay himself, which is crazy. He just charges these. So, yeah, just to kind of, if you listen to the episode, this is a good. If you haven't listened to the episode, this is a good time to go back. We talk a little bit about it in the episode, but he goes around and does fundraisers for, animal nonprofits, a lot of like humane societies and things like that. That's what he raises funds for, and he only charges them his costs. He doesn't, doesn't take a performance fee. He only
no.
charges for his expenses, which is, travel, uh, lodging, and then, obviously, and then paying other talent if he needs to. But which is a really cool thing to do. Like he could charge them a little something and take something himself if he wanted, and it wouldn't be a bad thing. I mean, comics do that kind of work all the time. I mean, you can't just work for free continually, but he's got himself situation that works for this. So
Yeah.
very commendable.
It really is. It really is. And it's a way that he was able to marry two passions. Which
Absolutely. And again, finding your niche.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Clay kind of figured it out during the pandemic because he came up with, see, he does a bit called Foley Informed, on
Yep.
stage.
Yep.
Um, he came up with it during the pandemic because he was like, I just want to do something. I need to write. I need to do. So he started making these videos. They were hilarious and fun, and they were these short little videos. And then he turned it into this whole on stage bit, which is fantastic. But he took that time and made it into what it is now.
Hmm.
Because he was like, I just don't want. He's like, I can't remember. He and I have talked about this a lot. He loves the writing more than he loves the performing.
And that's different because a lot, I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people like both aspects of it, but
Oh yeah.
that's definitely a unique thing.
Yeah. That is I mean, he likes the performing. He likes, all of us love the applause. That feels good.
That's right. Give me my accolades.
Oh, absolutely.
I want all the accolades.
But yeah, his scale is definitely tipped towards the writing portion, and you can tell because his jokes are tight and lean, and
Hmm.
they are great. But like it's like going back to the importance of he figured out how to market himself, and
Yeah.
then figured out how to market himself along with his organization.
And
Uh,
marketing, I mean, it's important. That's one thing. I mean, I've realized that marketing was so important that I went back to school for marketing.
yeah,
And not because, it's funny because I don't, this isn't a joke I do on stage, but it is a joke that I have where, a lot of comedians dropped out of college to pursue comedy. I pursued comedy and it got me to go back to college.
right. But you look at other good examples of marketing, like you do a great job with your marketing. Bert Kreischer.
I hope so. I mean, like I said, I did go to
Yeah.
school and I'm continually working on learning more about marketing. So if I'm doing it bad,
Right.
not an
Yeah.
issue.
But like, like I said, Bert Kreischer is a great example of how
Hmm.
marketing has helped turn his career around.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and with that, I mean, this is one thing with marketing, and this is something I've seen, not saying that Clay or Bert are fall into this category, but one thing I have seen with other comedians that were good at marketing, they're not always that funny. That's one thing about if you're really good at marketing, you can really get booked and you can make money doing comedy, doing stuff, and you're not necessarily funny. Like I've
yeah,
seen plenty of comics do that
you
where,
see the comics with a lot of hustle and
yep.
all cattle, no hat.
Yeah, there you
Or
go.
all
That's
hat,
a
no
oh,
cattle. That's what it is.
all
All hat,
hat,
no cattle.
all hat, no
Uh,
cattle. I like that.
if you
That's
have all the cattle and no hat, you're still doing okay. What a
I don't know.
dumb.
Depends on how hot it is out. Depends on how
See,
sunny it is.
well, you can just crawl underneath your cattle, and
Well, touche, touche.
yeah, what a dummy. At least I
That's why
fixed
we love
myself.
you.
Uh, boy, oh boy, I've got to
Yeah.
perform tonight. I got to get my brain
Oh,
on
yeah.
turned
You got to
on.
get fire up the cylinders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get
Well,
there. We'll get
when
there.
it comes to marketing, like I said, that is an important aspect. Like I even started teaching a workshop for that I designed that's specifically for comedians and entertainers,
Your EPK workshop.
No, no, that I created another one. I have a marketing and branding workshop that I do now as well. I haven't done that one as much as far as like doing online classes for that one. I've done it at some festivals,
Mm,
but it's tailored specifically to comedians because well marketing the nice thing about marketing, like every business needs marketing. Like marketing is a general thing that if you have general knowledge of marketing, you can usually apply that general knowledge to all the different industries. Granted, there's you got to learn about the industry to really market that industry. And that's the thing, like with as a comedian and a person who's in marketing, I have the knowledge on both sides, so it's easy for me to tailor that into, hey, this is some good stuff for just marketing entertainment
yeah.
you know and one of the things that I'll mention here, as long as we're talking about marketing, because like you said, Clay's a good example of this. He's been able to do a really good job of marketing. He's keeping himself busy, plus he's doing something good for the animals. Like he's got a good system going on. But branding, one of the things I see comics do, and I realize it's not, you can't always get away with this because with social media, there's so many people on social media, but branding, think about branding. And when you think about branding, think about your usernames and keeping it as simple as possible. And when I say that, I mean keeping it so it's the same across all platforms. My I use my handle on all social media is dbub comedy. My last name is can be hard to spell because of the way it sounds. People sometimes might spell it the wrong way. And so I just simplified, and made it Debub Comedy, and I put it on all my social media. So like when you're at a show, I've seen comics where they're like, well, you can follow me here on, at Twitter at, and then it's a username, or on Instagram at, and it's a different username. Your audience is their attention span is so short, they're gonna lose it. Just have one username. Just
Yeah.
keep it that simple. You know?
Yeah, I'm guilty. Because the like my TikTok account, I started it with a friend, and we were doing we were trying to do sketches together, and we both were in two different locations trying to, and it worked out, but it
Well,
just
even your Instagram, honestly. I mean,
yeah.
I your Instagram, you should it should be coherent with like comedy and entertainment at
Yeah.
some
Oh,
level.
yeah, I was gonna throw that out there too because I started that Instagram account before.
Comedy, probably, yeah.
Well, no,
Or
it was before, like, because that was gonna be like my account to just have for me and
oh yeah, yeah,
friends.
yeah, like a
Because
personal account. Yep,
at the time, it was Twitter and Facebook that was for comics.
yep,
Instagram was, and I was gonna kind of concentrate on my visual art over
yep.
there.
Gotcha. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then as
Which
Twitter
makes
started
sense.
turning into what Twitter turned into, I started leaning. Everyone started migrating to Instagram, and I'm like, well, I've already got a following. Do I start another? But yeah, yeah, and I've thought, that would be the smart thing is just have it
Well,
remain
and
the
you know what's
same.
cool about that, Larry, is you
What's
can
that?
change your username. That is
I
that's a thing that can be done.
I did not know that, Dan.
Yes, you can actually change your username. That's if you go to edit your profile, you can change your username.
I have not. The only time I
But
edit my profile is when I'm sad in a hotel room alone, and I
well,
write something stupid in my bio.
looks like Larry has an action item. Uh,
I do. I do. I have an action item. Thank you,
But
Dan.
as a reminder, as added on to that though, if anybody's out there and you do change your username, remember you do need to update your links wherever you have it linked to, because that URL will change. Because the URL on like Instagram, for example, will be instagram.com/your username. So if you change your username, that redirect goes somewhere else. So you got to make sure you update your websites and your link trees and all that stuff. That's for the people listening and you, Larry, if you do it.
Well, and I will, and that
But
is so I appreciate that because I didn't know that was a thing you could do. In
yep.
fact, I should do it right away because Dan, there's no time to waste.
There is no time to waste. What a great segue.
Did you like
Look,
that?
I love that. That was a great. We'd be way more professional if we didn't pat ourselves on our backs for our segues.
Yeah, but let's face it, neither one of us are good at segues. So,
No. So when we get a good one, we have to give it praise.
that's my segue is usually stopping in the middle of the opening of a joke to look at the audience and go, "I'm bad at segues." Anyway, let's continue.
I'll finish this joke now.
um, but yeah, no, and that's again another thing that Clay and I have talked about tirelessly in the car over many hours driving all over the place. Is the concept of, especially if you know when you start this journey in your 30s, you
Mhm.
have to shove 6 years into 3 years. You have to shove 8 years into 4 years. You have to double everything
Yep.
because that was actually something that Clay and I talked about early on. Because I had a friend of mine stop me at an open mic. He was working the door, and he just looked at me and he was like, "You're not old, but you have no time to waste." And I was like, "Absolutely." And so I get the idea of the grind and staying on the grind and doing it. Like it was what I lived, ate, breathed, and dreamed every day for forever. until I got those hours in, until I was like able to perform a solid 30. And then was like, all right, I got a solid 30, I got a good 45, I've got a decent 60. Now I've got to get that solid 45, and it was just pound, pound, pound. And
Was it
but
a Pound Smith?
it was, look, it's a clever, because my initials are LB Smith. And it took, here's the thing, I'm so dumb. It took me until my 20s when a friend of mine started calling me that. And I was like, why are you calling me Pound Smith? And she's like, because that's your initials, dumbass. And I was like, oh,
That's funny.
delightful.
And for people listening that probably don't get that joke, his Instagram handle is Pound Smith.
Yeah, Pound Smith 2.
Yeah.
That's my name. It's very clever. It's very clever.
It's
But
very clever.
but like, you and I have talked about this before, where like you do have to shove a lot of experience in a short amount of time until you get to the point where you can start taking a breath, where you can
Yeah.
start um and I feel like um you know we have we have earned that, to be like, and now I don't have to perform every night. I don't have to
Yeah.
go out and do 6 open mics in a night,
And we talked
because
about this on a recent episode
we
too, I
did.
think,
We did.
where yeah, where because or maybe it wasn't on the episode, maybe it was off record. I don't remember, but we had a conversation about
Yeah.
getting up, not going out every night because we're on the road a lot.
Yep. Exactly. Because as you pointed out, if you're doing open mics in the city and you get 3 minutes
Yeah.
to
Even
do,
if you get five,
yeah,
if you get 5 minutes at an open mic, if and you're on the road, and say on a weekend you do 3 shows and you're doing 60 minutes a show, that's 180 minutes. Divide that by 5. That's a lot of sets you're getting, a lot of reps you're
yeah,
getting in that
exactly.
weekend, versus, and you're not even going to get that many during the week, even if you'd have to do 3 or 4, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just important to not, to marry the concept of no time to waste with quality over quantity.
hmm And with that, yeah, exactly. They kind of go hand in hand. You don't want to be wasting time, and that quality over quantity. And it isn't just, open mics. When you're thinking about doing open mics and shows and stuff, you don't want to just do the ones that, you want to make sure you're going to a quality mic. If it's an open mic where there's no audience and only a few comics, whatever, and you're only getting 3 minutes, or you could drive a little further and do a mic that has a little bit of an audience
Yeah.
and more time. Like, those are the things you want to look at it from a logistical point of view. Because also, when it comes to like the hustle, especially for newer, this is more for newer comics. When you're doing all these open mics, you're driving all over, you're going all over to do these open mics. You need to think about, how much money you're spending too. Like, if you're spending, $10 a night on gas, make it count.
Right.
Go to a open mic that's going to give you more quality. And sometimes that's not a comedy open mic. Sometimes, and I know comics hate this, but sometimes it's a mixed open mic. I have got, I've enjoyed doing mixed open mics more than comedy open mics, only because a lot of times at open mics, you don't have a crowd. A lot of the comedy clubs nowadays, a lot of people will go to those open mics. Those are usually the quality ones. But like your independent open mics at like bars and stuff, if there's an audience, they probably didn't come intentionally, that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you're losing your quality there. There's not a quality audience. But one
Well,
thing
and
I
that's what
found. Oh, go
I was
ahead.
going to jump in real quick. That was what Clay was talking about.
Yep.
Is where we came up. We had these quality open mics where it boggles your mind to think of it, but there were dedicated audiences to these
Yeah.
open mics that would show up, and they knew that whoever was going to be on stage, 99% of, well, 95% of them were showing up, putting work in, trying to write jokes, trying to. So even if something didn't work, the audience was still like, they'd let you know, but they were still
hmm
supportive. They were still
Yep.
like let's see what else he's got. I know this guy
Yep.
kills normally.
Hmm.
Obviously, he's working on a whole new set of jokes, and it was that, the Tuttle Brothers and Champagne Urbana put on, like, there for a short bit. They had like 3 or 4 open mics, something like that. I mean, it was, and they were quality. Like, you went there to work, and
Hmm.
Springfield had a few open mics, and then the mic that I ran at Buzzbomb ended up, like, half the time we'd be 3/4 of the way full, if not full, of audience to work those jokes.
That's great.
And then half the time, we'd have 10 people.
Yeah, yep.
But that's
But
10.
even 10 people is better than, I mean, most open mics in bigger markets, you end up, it's just comedians and they're
It's
not really
just
paying,
comics.
and they're not paying attention to each other because, and it's, this isn't a knock on comics, but they're not paying attention to each other because they're thinking about their set. They're getting ready, figuring out what they're doing. They're in their own head and things like that, which we all get. And it's funny because I've seen newer, like new comics come to an open mic and then get upset that the comics aren't watching the show. And it's like, well, you haven't been doing comedy long enough to
Right.
understand why. But going back to the mixed open mic, the
Yeah.
reason their quality is because usually, so like with music, people don't have to be vested in music. They can listen to music in the background and still enjoy it, still do their thing. With comedy, you need a vested audience. You need an active listening. And this is a good way to test your material. Because in a situation like that where the audience may not be paying attention because they were listening to music, now suddenly there's comedy. If you do material and you start drawing that audience in and they start actively listening and paying attention, then it's a good barometer of how well that joke is, probably like you probably are onto something with that bit. It's probably a good joke because, and that material is probably good because it's drawing people in who weren't paying attention. And a lot of
Exactly.
times they give you more time
Yep.
too.
Yeah. There's been several mixed mics that are like, what do you want? You want 8? You want 10? Sure, I'll take it. But be ready, because if this starts, I'm not going to kill your vibe
Yep.
if it starts going downhill. And that's the other thing, though, is it's a great way to build up that callus.
Yep. And to that point, don't just do open mics where you're comfortable. I just had a conversation with a friend who who has been going to, he pretty much just goes to the same open mics, and I was thinking about going to another open mic and he was like, I don't know if I want to go, and I gave him crap about it because I was like, dude, you need to go to these other mics that, even though, like, for one, it'll help with networking, and two, you got to get out of your comfort zone. Don't just, because if you start performing where you're comfortable, you're not going to get any better, because then
Yep.
you're going to just keep doing that same material that you're comfortable with. So sometimes you have to, especially when you're a newer comic, go do these mics where you're going to be uncomfortable, because
Yep.
those are the best learning experiences.
Well, it's just, like with anything, just as an analogy, working out, the only time you get any growth is when you could push past your comfort point.
Hmm.
That's just how it works with art and writing and everything. You have to be uncomfortable to in
Yeah.
order to effectuate growth. So
Yep, absolutely. Now I want to go back to the good marketing real quick, just
yeah,
because I want to, before we leave, go out for the day, I want to leave or give a few more marketing tips. Just quick. First thing, like I said, branding. Make sure that your uh I don't know if concise is the right word that I want, but like on the same, same username across the board if you can, or very similar. You want to make it, streamlined. There we go. Streamlined. So you have one username, people can find you wherever. Another marketing tip, this is just basic marketing. Get yourself good headshots. Write yourself a good bio. Those are things that you're going to need as you're starting to get booked. Um, and a lot of times you see this in a lot of comedy scenes. There's somebody that also does photography as a side hustle or as a business, and or they might be a new photographer and they're just looking to build a portfolio. So there are ways of getting headshots, cheaper or whatever. But if you really want to be a professional comedian, and being a professional at anything does require putting time, putting money, and putting resources into that. Comedy's no different. Sure, you can go to an open mic and get better at comedy, but if you want to be a professional, you need these things. You need good quality headshots. You need to have a bio. Um, Another marketing, tip to think about is like, doing graphics. Get a good graphic program. Canva's great. It's free. Or you can pay for the pro. I recommend paying for the pro. It's not that much a month for it, but you can make nice flyers to promote, so
Hmm.
on and so forth, things like that.
Yeah,
So,
you don't want to get on bad comedy flyers on that Facebook page. You do not want to. So make good flyers.
yep. And then the last thing that I will quick tip, don't post every set. This is I know right now we're in the world of social media where everybody's trying to blow up on social media. They're putting up as much content as they can, which is, I get it. I understand the hustle, but if you're a new comedian, if you go up and bomb at an open mic, and you might not think you bomb because you're delusional, because you're not hearing what the audience is hearing, and I'm sure that's going to upset some people hearing this, but those are just straight facts. People are delusional. They think they did great when they did not, and then they post those sets because,
Hmm.
and it looks bad because what's going to happen? People are going to see that, and then they're not going to want to book you. Make sure
Yeah,
if you're putting out content, make sure it's good content. That would be, my advice there.
yeah,
You don't have to put out every set you record.
yeah.
It's not gonna, if
Or
anything, it's gonna deter people from wanting to follow you because you're putting out bad comedy.
if if nothing else, you don't have to post every set. Even if it's just you pull out a good 1 minute moment.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
you
Well,
watch it and
and
you're like, oh man, this was a great moment from this
yep,
set. I
exactly.
Yeah, post that. Post that.
Yeah. And I would say with that, and don't post it right away. Wait till you uh have a bank of that, you know. If get several videos, because then once you have several videos built up, then you can start releasing, and you can release, because the thing with social media is you want to be consistent, and they want you to post. If you're posting, if they had it their way, you'd be posting 3 videos a day, but if you post 3 videos a week, that's probably going to be good to like really start getting you fed into the algorithms and maybe build a following and stuff. But it's hard to have that much content. That's why I think a lot of comics just throw out whatever because they just want to feed that algorithm, which I get. You're trying to feed the algorithm and get your content out there, but if you're putting out good content, it's going to backfire in your
Yeah.
face. So get good quality content and build it up. When you have, a bunch of videos like that are good quality as far as like the material's good, you're getting good laughs, it was a good moment, whatever the case be, get a handful of those together, 15, 20 of them, and then you can start releasing 2 a week. And then if you get 20 videos, that's 10 weeks. That's almost 3 months worth of material.
Yep.
So that would be so, yeah. So just to kind of recap, on the branding side of things, streamline it. Make sure your username is easy to. You want to make sure with marketing, it boils down to getting your name out there and building awareness, whether it's brand awareness, whether you're trying to sell a product, whatever it is. And the best way you can do that is make it easier for the people to find you. And when you're marketing for business, I do a lot of my day job. I do marketing. That's what I do. And we do lead generation. The idea is to make it as easy as possible for our customers to call us for our products and services. Same thing with comedy. Make it as easy as you can for people to find you. And that's, making sure your username is the same on all platforms. Simple. Don't get crazy with spelling, because that's another thing you'll see where they'll use numbers instead of letters and things like that. Like, people have short attention spans, and that means they're not putting much effort into things. If you don't make it easy for them, they ain't following you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Get yourself some stickers and put your QR code on it.
That. Yep. That's See, this is all good stuff. We could,
Yeah,
again,
we could go.
just
I could
one
go.
episode.
I could just do a whole episode just on marketing.
Why don't we do? We should do a series. We should do a
We should.
series about that side of it. I think everyone would benefit from it.
Yeah, maybe that should be a goal. Maybe if we get we'll go not low. If we get 10 supporters, which that means if you pay $3 a month and you already get the episodes early and ad free, but if we get up to 10 supporters at that $3 a month level, we will do we'll do a special series on marketing just for subscribers.
Oh, see,
Our supporters. Yeah.
Now that's good marketing, Dan.
It is good marketing because we're setting goals, and
Yeah.
we achieve those goals and we get back to those people. So if you would like us to do a series on marketing where we will dive way deeper, it'll basically be my workshop, but broken up into a series of these, and it'll be for our subscribers. Become a supporter for $3 a month.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. And the button right there, right below this, wherever you're listening to this podcast, you'll see that button that says support this podcast. Hit that button, sign up. It's $3 a month. You already get episodes ad free and early. So, and then now if we get up to 10, we'll do some bonus material just for that. Otherwise, we'll still be giving away free tips here and there because that's what we do. That's the whole purpose of this. So we all get better together. And then, do all the things like, share, follow the podcast, wherever you listen to the podcast, tell your friends about it. Follow all the links down below, join the Facebook group, get involved, join the community. That's what we're trying to build, community. Let's get better together. And with that, we bid adios.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good week.
This has been a Tape Deck Media production. Thank you for listening.